friends, it's Teresa and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am going to be doing a spoiler-free book review on an ARC I received from, I think, NetGalley? Penguin? One of the two. But that is on A Place for Vanishing by Anne Freistadt. This is a YA Gothic novel, so we all know one of my favorite genres ever is the Gothic literature genre, so let's get into it because I do have some things I want to talk about, a lot of things I wanted to talk about, So like I said in the intro, A Place for Vanishing by Anne Freistadt is a YA Gothic novel, which I did not know going in. It follows a young girl named Libby, so after her recent suicide attempt and her recent bipolar 2 diagnosis, I believe, her mother kind of does a last-ditch effort and takes her and her younger sister to her mom's family home, where her mom hasn't been in since she was like 4 years old after the mysterious disappearance of her parents. As the trio settle in and they become like super comfortable and just like really get in touch with this house, Libby starts to notice some things are weird. Like the fact that there are always bugs. Even though they call it an exterminator, there are always bugs. The entire house is bug themed. And the more she learns about this house, the more she realizes there have been more than just her grandparents' disappearance. There have been a string of disappearances, which leaves her creeped out that there are not only bugs roaming around in the house, but also probably the spirits of those said missing people roaming the hall. Moving on to the trigger warnings of this book, obviously from the description alone, there's going to be mentions of suicide attempt, poor mental health is a big one, drinking. There's a lot of bugs and gore and violence. It's just an all-around creepy novel. So if you're not a big fan of like discussions, well, obviously if you're not in the mind space for discussions of suicide, of poor mental health, there is alcohol use in here, and there's like discussions of like manic episodes and all those not so great things. Probably shouldn't read it, but if you are in the headspace, I recommend it. There is also just a lot of creepy things. It does involve a lot of bugs. There's a lot of bug talk, and thinking about it. So first thoughts of this book, I'm not gonna lie, I did mention it earlier. I had no idea this was a Gothic book. No clue at all. I literally saw the cover of the book, I believe, and was like, oh, that's really pretty. And I like skimmed the description, and you would think that my brain would go, that's a Gothic novel. Did not pick up in my mind at all. I thought it was gonna be like a novel discussing mental health, and while it did discuss mental health, it was a Gothic novel, which I didn't really go into it. I genuinely went into this book head empty, no thoughts. There's not a single thought behind my eyes. It was just not there. So definitely something that I was like, ooh. But I was pleasantly surprised with the outcome, like the fact that it was a Gothic novel. Very pleasantly surprised. I'm going to start off with the things I was not a big fan of with the book, just because they are a bit more on the nitpicky side, and it definitely was something that I had to sit down with after. Like, I read reviews for this book afterwards, like I always do. Like, whenever I make a review or write my review for any book, whether it's like a large review like this one where I do like a video review, or a small one that I just leave on the Goodreads website and do a wrap-up with, I always try to read other people's reviews to see if like what they're saying matches up to how I was feeling with the book, or vice versa, or if maybe I was like, they're right. This reviewer is right and I agree with it. Did not get that many instances from when I was reading this book, so I definitely had to nitpick a lot to get kind of the vibe that I was going for, or at least the things that I definitely did not enjoy in the book. So this is a very nitpicky thing, so if it's not like, if you're reading it or you're listening to this video or watching it and you're like, that seems to be a little bit much, it's probably because it is. I definitely had to go in and like nitpick what I did not like about this book. And if you hear a soft squeaky meow, that's my cat Sherman. So one of the things that I did not like was I think the ending felt like it was missing something. Obviously it's a YA book. It's not going to be... We'll give Shermy some attention because he's meowing, but he's not going to like attention because he's not like being picked up. Do you, boy? Do you, my little void? Yeah. He doesn't like being very tall. Nico loves being tall. Sherman is very happy and content on the ground. Yeah? Okay. Like I said, there's definitely a bit more nitpicky on the things I did not like about the book. I felt like the ending definitely had something missing. Like, obviously it's a YA book. It's a YA book. We can't leave it on a super creepy cliffhanger, or like a will they, won't they situation, or are they not okay situation, or like people have died situation, you know? It's not gonna be like that. But I definitely felt like it was missing something, kind of like the usual things in a Gothic novel where it's like a foreboding, like, is it really safe kind of vibe. I felt like they felt too safe and too happy and too content. But I guess it's a very nitpicky thing. I really genuinely like the ending considering how it wrapped up and how Libby's like journey ended in the book. But again, this is very nitpicky. I feel like that the book was too clean, like the ending was too clean. It was too much like, oh yeah, we have fixed the solution, we have figured out the solution, and we are now sitting and chilling at home in this home that almost murdered us, and possessed our bodies with bugs. And because the ending was so happy and it was so, like, not happy-go-lucky, but it was just, like, hopeful, which, like, I love that for them. But I felt like it just had something missing, and I couldn't figure out what the missing aspect is. I feel like part of me was expecting, like, that foreboding, like, gothic or, like, that horror movie Zoom Out, where it feels like you feel like you should be happy, but you're also slightly unsettled at the same time. I think I was waiting for that, and I didn't get it, so I definitely was just, like, missing something. Cannot place what this something is, but it's missing something. So I definitely do think that, like, the ending, while good, and I enjoyed it very much, still had a little touch missing there. And I wish I kind of could put my finger on what was missing, but I think it's just that foreboding, like, are they really safe? Is there something else in the distance coming for them? That just kind of, like, you know, like, leaves you unsettled when you leave, like, a horror movie, or you finish a horror book, or you finish a gothic novel. Just something that leaves you like, oh yeah, it's a good ending, but then also makes you feel very unsettled by the end of it. Like, when you, like, really realize the ending and the stakes of the thing, you're like, unsettling. Moving on to the things I really loved about this book, and I do have quite a lot, so we're gonna be here a minute. But this book is everything that I wanted out of a gothic novel, YA or not. Like, it was just creepy, it was crawly, the prose was absolutely beautiful. I could, like, picture everything. Like, it really put you in the scene with how Anne Freistadt wrote this book. It was very descriptive without giving you too much information, but it left enough for your imagination that you could, like, pick and choose the parts around you and really figure out what you enjoyed, or you could really just understand the world that she was trying to build and how this house looked and how frightening it was to the people around them, and just the eeriness of it all. And you felt genuinely unsettled every time you got in this house. Like, every time you picked up the book, just like the feeling of unsettledness and unease just washed over you. And it was just so wonderful to me, and it's everything that I wanted in a horror or a gothic novel. It was just creepy and unsettling and eerie, and just like the build-up was there, and the pacing, I think, was perfect for a gothic novel. It's just so good. I absolutely adored the characters of this novel, from Flynn, the love interest, to her younger sister, to her mother, to Libby. I think they were all fleshed out, and they all had their own, like, internal problems that I feel like is very reminiscent of a good gothic character. That they have, like, there's several layers, they have everything that they had, that they needed to feel like a real person, someone who would go through these things and had their own issues and their own problems. There wasn't a moment where I felt like one felt flatter than the other, or that the main character was losing on something, but the side characters were fleshed out, or that the main character was too fleshed out and the side characters were not balanced at all. I felt like everyone had a role to play in the book, and everyone had a backstory and a personality and goals and values, and a reason to be doing the things that they were doing. And I really enjoyed that part of it. I felt like, on top of how the plot was settled, having really strong characters really helped make this story seem more believable and help me attach myself to them. I especially found Libby to be a very sympathetic character. I thought that her struggle with her mental health was, I don't have bipolar 2 disorder, bipolar 2, but I definitely found her to be very sympathetic. I think that the author definitely took time and care to craft Libby's mental illnesses, and took the time to really understand what it meant to have these mental illnesses. And you could really see it on the page. It didn't feel like it was a thing that she added just for kicks and giggles. It didn't feel like it was something that she needed to layer to this to, like, make Libby seem more unreliable. It just felt natural to Libby to have this mental illness. Like, it didn't feel like It was forced on the character to make the characters fit into the story. I really understood Libby's struggles with her depression and her struggles with anxiety. I really felt like because there was so much care added into the mental illness aspect of it, so much knowledge and so much like love put into it, that it really helped flesh out Libby even more, and it really helped her feel like an unreliable narrator. While it wasn't like something that like felt super unreliable, like obviously you're not gonna go into like the Percy Jackson of things where it's so deeply into his head that you forget how things are supposed to be and are. I felt like it made Libby a more unreliable narrator to herself. She couldn't really trust her own thoughts. She couldn't really trust what was happening in the house at first because she wasn't sure if it was because she was going through another manic episode or if the medication was doing something. She just had a feeling that something was wrong, and like obviously the readers know something's wrong, but because there's so much doubt in Libby's character and what she is seeing herself and what she's processing, she makes it more sympathetic. I also loved learning about the side characters. Like I said, I love Flynn the medium, who is a love interest, who has his own ties to the house, his own mental health struggles, and his own goals and reasons for doing what he's doing. I also really loved her sister, whose name I'm forgetting, and their mom Grace, and their own struggles with their own mental health and kind of what Libby did and having to deal with the aftermath of helping Libby overcome this while also not understanding it themselves, and also dealing with their own feelings of like anger and sadness toward the situation, which are all very valid, I think. I think these characters were just done so beautifully, and there's so much love and care that went into each of them that they felt like real people that I had known for months, maybe years, and I felt really sad to put them away when the book was over. The pacing, while slow, like I saw a lot of the concerns that people had in the reviews that the pacing was slow. I think I do agree the pacing is slow. It does build itself up to a lot, but it is very true to the Gothic literature nature. If you guys haven't read Gothic literature, naturally you're going to be like, this is a really slow paced book. Like, why is this so slow? It's slow because it's building everything up. It's building up the big confrontation at the end. It's building up the scares, the creepies, the eepies, the creepies and the crawlies and everything in between. But I definitely do think it's definitely true to the Gothic literature genre. It's slow paced, but it has a steady beat to it that you can feel when things are starting to rise up and start to struggle a little bit, and you know when to anticipate something scary happening, and you know when things are not going to be okay after this interaction. I think it was very true, and I really enjoyed the pacing of this book because it felt just right for it being a YA novel, but also being a Gothic novel and staying true to the age category because, you know, attention spans, and also staying true to the genre itself. I really enjoyed the houses, like the house's backstory. Like, my favorite part about Gothic novels is that the house feels alive, that the house feels like a member, and that it feels like it has its own story, and that it has its own capabilities and its own abilities without being like super like on the nose. And I really enjoyed that this book had that aspect. The house was creepy. It had its eccentricities. It had its quirks. It had everything that you would think a big mansion in the woods that everyone is scared to touch would have. The dust, the bugs, the stone glass windows, the architecture outside, the garden, everything about it just felt alive, and the house was breathing and beating with the story and growing and becoming more horrifying as the plot continued. And it was just such a fun thing to see. It's my favorite thing about a lot of Gothic literature is when the house is alive in of itself, and it's like part of, it's not just like a, what do you call them? Missing the word. It's not just like a vessel for the, like, it's not just a setting, it's a part of the plot and the characters within itself, and it was just such a good thing. Oh, I loved it so much. I'm gonna have a copy of this book on my shelves in like a couple weeks because the book comes out next week. The last 25% of this book had me at the edge of my seat. It's probably my favorite parts of any horror novel, is that the last like 25%, maybe 40-ish% of the book is always the most fast-paced, because everyone's trying to wrap things up and everyone's trying to figure out a solution, and they're testing things out, and sometimes it's not always working, but sometimes it does. So it's just like a guessing game of what will work and what won't. Like, I just didn't know how the book was going to end. Like, obviously I was hoping for a happy ending. It's young adult. We can't traumatize the teenagers too much. They're escaping reality, not reliving it. But I really was just unsure of how the book was going to end. I was unsure how they were going to figure out a solution. I was unsure how we were going to get certain characters back. But it all worked out in the end, and I just could not put the book down. Like, I wanted to pick it up. I wanted to keep reading. I had so many things to do the weekend that I was finishing this book, and I just could not do it. Like, I was supposed to like work on bullet journal stuff. I was supposed to work on like play Hades and hopefully make more progress on that. None of that happened. I played Hades once. I opened my bullet journal once. I was too busy reading, and it was like probably the best time that I could have done to wrap up my year instead of stressing out over a bullet journal or doing anything. It was just getting lost in a book, and it was just so good. And lastly, my other favorite thing, and probably the best thing about this book, or one of them, is that the prose was just so good. I think, like I said in kind of like my overall arching thoughts in the beginning, is that the prose felt like it told us things that we needed to know. It kept things secret from us. It gave us these beautiful, lush descriptions without removing things that we could put in our minds ourselves. It gave us just these really disgusting and creepy and crawly things, and I found myself just really immersed in the novel because of the prose. Like the prose is half of what makes the book for me a lot of the times. For me to get lost in a book and really just forget that I'm reading, and for me to forget to breathe or to like move or to just like make a single sound, I give it up to the prose, and this book gave me that. Like, I felt like I was watching a horror movie. I was just so stiff. I was like holding my breath, and I was just like trying to hope and pray that everything worked out, and I was hoping that like no one else got hurt and no one else died. And it was just so like it was the perfect book. Like, this prose was just wonderful to me, and I love this author's prose. Like, it ended up evoking such an emotion for me that I couldn't like wear pants, little TMI, or like a blanket when I was reading the book, because it would talk about the bugs and the little skittering noises they make and the clicks that they did, and I could just like feel bugs crawling up my legs, and I had to like get up multiple times and like just make sure that there wasn't a literal bug crawling up my leg trying to take little nips out of me. And it was just like, that's how immersive the book was, and I definitely did enjoy this prose so much. It was just like such an evocative way that she wrote, and I definitely do think that Anne Freistadt is like, if she wants to write more gothic novels, I will be like the first person to buy them, because the way she wrote this was just absolutely stunning. Trying to wrap up the video with my overall thoughts. Like I said, this is everything I wanted in a YA gothic novel. Like, you typically, like, I don't say like it's a step down from adult, but since it is like a younger age category, I do expect some things to always be like just a little like more like toned down, because we don't, like I said, we don't want to traumatize the children. They're going through enough. We don't want to traumatize them more. But I felt like this was like the perfect thing for a young adult gothic novel, and definitely I think a good starter novel if someone's like, I want to get more into scary books. I think this is a good book for them to read, unless they're scared of bugs. And I definitely will be adding Anne Freistadt to like an auto-buy author list for myself, because this was just like on a different level, had me like on the floor shocked with how good it was. It was just that good. Definitely a 5 out of 5 stars. I highly recommend this book if you have not read it yet. It definitely gave me like a mixture of like Haunting of Hill House and Haunting of Bly Manor, just molded together, where you had these strong characters that are going through things in a house that comes to life and people go missing. And I think it's just like this beautiful work that I will like forever hold up as one of my favorite gothic novels. And if there was ever a movie to come of this, it'd probably become my favorite movie, right next to like, or one of my favorite gothic like media that I consume, next to like Haunting of Hill House and Haunting of Bly Manor. Like, it was so reminiscent of that to me that I just got lost in the book every single time, much like I did get lost with those TV shows. And I think the vibes are very similar as well, so can't go wrong with that. But that is it for my review, my spoiler-free review. Editing Therese will let me know or let the people know if this was spoiler free or not. But my spoiler free review of A Place for Vanishing by Anne Freistadt. If you guys like these videos, let me know in the comments down below. I do try to do reviews once a month, so keep an eye for those. And until next time, hit like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll talk to you guys in my next video. Bye!